Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Around the Paul, your one-stop shop for all Clemson news here at Clemson Sports Media. So glad to have you tuning in tonight. As always, I'm joined by Griffin Barfield and Clifton Kennedy. I'm Garrett Mitchell, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight, a lot happening in Clemson and around the Clemson athletic program. And it was a big day today. We're going to be talking about the Clemson Media Day. Clifton was there, and we're going to get the inside scoop on that. We're going to talk about some latest Clemson news that has come down over the wire in the past week, some Clemson recruiting updates, and then we're going to talk about some Clemson players that are in the professional ranks, having successful NFL careers, and who have been projected to have great seasons coming up. And then we'll look ahead later on at some things we have coming up and some exciting stuff we have coming up for you. But before we get started tonight, guys, Griffin, Clifton, hope it's been a great week. And Griffin, I hope your hand's on the mend. We learned last week that you had broken your wrist, so I hope that's coming along nicely.
Yeah, it's going along really nicely. I'm having a lot more mobility stuff, which is really good. And I get it off in about 2 weeks, so we're about halfway there, which is, benchmark. We're almost there.
Hey, just mark the days off the calendar. I had a cast on my hand
Exactly.
way back when, about 18 years ago, and it wasn't fun. It was in late May, so when you've got a cast on your hand and the weather's hot, oh, man, it's just no fun at all. So hopefully that thing gets off sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Garrett.
Yep. And Clifton, how about it, man? It was how's your last week been? And from what I hear, you had quite a busy morning.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, the last week's been great. It's just been full steam ahead to today. And we heard some good stuff at Media Day. And it was just an amazing day just to be able to, I've been there once, so it was just an amazing day and good to see. Not a lot new from Dabo, but we heard some tits and bits, some, little things coming out, and just good to see Riley on the mic and the defensive coordinator on the mic and all the this is one of the only times that you're going to be able to see the assistant coaches and probably interview assistant coaches. And so it's just one of those fun days to go. I was a little disappointed because they didn't have the Media Olympics this year. But because I really wanted to throw a football, I really wanted to try to kick a field goal. And I know I can throw a football, but I'm not sure about kicking a field goal. But I was a little disappointed in that. But it was all in all a great day and great fun. So, yeah. That's I
tell you what,
in a nutshell.
Yeah, sorry you don't have any gold medals to bring on for show and tell tonight. That would have been fun to show all of our cool viewers out there.
Yeah, it would have been fun. But overall, like I said, it was a great day, and Clemson's going to be hot this year. I get that feeling. So.
Well, let's since you were there, Clifton, let's jump right into some of the things that you heard and what the coaches were saying. What's the biggest takeaway that you got from today in terms of how the coaches feel about the team, some of these young guys that have come in and are progressing and acclimating to the program? What's the overall feel that you were able to pick up on while you were there? And as like you said, you just have a feeling it's going to be a good season. So, what kind of tipped you off to that feeling, and what was the mood like?
Well, for one thing, we heard that Adam Randall and Bo Collins are both healthy. So that was good to hear. And we heard that they are going to redshirt Vienza. And if I'm not mistaken, that's what I heard. And then Venables has an injury that they're actually I could be getting these mixed up. Vienza might be playing, but I'm not quite sure. But because there was just a lot going on. But I do know that Venables, they are redshirting him, and that he's having surgery, and they can play 4 games, So they're hoping to get that surgery done, and then maybe he can play the 4 games at the end of the season, and then of course get that whole redshirt year back. And what that'll do for the defense is, since the defense is pretty stacked back there, that will give us a senior leadership going into next season. And because everybody else is probably going to move forward or has that chance to move forward, right? So it just gives us that opportunity to have that senior leadership next year, coming into next year. So that was some stuff that I heard, little things. I was around shooting photos, and so we might bring Ant in later. I haven't confirmed that yet. Probably not, because I hadn't heard much from him. But he was paying attention a lot more than I did. But those are the few little nuggets that I got from it today. So there were a lot of things going on. One thing that I thought was really, really cool for the media is we got to get our headshots done in the cab. And I don't know if y'all know what the cab is, but it's the whole media, where you see the recruits with all their shots and everything, like all their headshots and all those shots with all the trophies and all that stuff. We got to take our headshots in there today. So I thought that was super cool. That place is, if we could do our podcast there, that would be awesome, because they have a whole podcasting area. I mean, it would be super cool if we could rent that out. I just think that's super awesome. But have y'all had a chance to watch any of the videos from any of the coming out of media days today?
No, I haven't yet, Clifton. But one thing we'll tell everybody, go check out ClemsonSportsMedia.com. As Clifton said, he was there. Anthony Weeks was there. And we've got a lot of great content on there. Check out our YouTube channel, Clemson Sports Media, as well. And just all kinds of information and little nuggets and stories from Clemson Media Day. So much going on. So you'll definitely want to check out the website and the YouTube channel. You can follow us at CU Sports Media on Twitter, and we'll have all that for you. So just a lot of good stuff. But Griffin, after you hear what Clifton said, it would seem there's a lot of cause for optimism and excitement. And one thing that I like to hear is that 2 of your main receivers, Bo Collins and Adam Randall, who have both been injury plagued, if they're healthy, man, that just that's already a leg up for Garret Riley and the offense, and it's certainly a big help to Cade Klubnik as well.
Absolutely, Garrett. I think you hit the nail right in the head there. I think, with those big receivers coming back, I think it strengthens Garret Riley's, arsenal, that he could potentially, start the season off even stronger than we could have thought. With, Adam Randall and Bo Collins potentially being questionable throughout the summer, a couple of them not playing in the spring game, I think it's important to come back as strong as you possibly can. And the fact that you get 2 receivers one who is a veteran and who is a leader among that wide receiver room, and another who is a very promising one, being Adam Randall, I think it's huge. And I think you're going to see a lot of them, and they're going to be X factors for this Clemson offense that maybe not a lot of people know about.
Right, I agree with you 100%. And we talk about the offense. And again, check out everything we have on all of our social medias and the website and YouTube. But Clifton, one thing that I think I would like to hear is, what were some of the things that Garret Riley was saying? Obviously, it was the home run hire, the perceived home run hire of the college offseason. He comes in looking to revitalize this offense, inherits a super talented quarterback in Cade Klubnik. But now all eyes are on Garret Riley, what he can do with this offense. So what were some of the things you heard from him today, and what was he saying, and how does he feel about the players that he's inherited and what he's been able to do with them so far?
Well, as far as the players are concerned, he's super excited about, everybody pretty much being healthy, right? And that was the big thing last year. Of course, that since spring ball, we had all those injuries in spring ball, and now they haven't had a chance to really get with the players since spring ball. So he really hasn't had a chance to do much, game planning and stuff or stuff on the field with the players. But, it was more of like, one question that I heard asked was, where are they going to use the tight end, Brennan Stool? Like, are they going to use him as a tight end, or are they going to use him as a receiver? And they really didn't. They really, as from what I heard, they really didn't. Like I said, I was in and out taking photos, but from what I heard, they really didn't give you a yes. They are going to use him as a receiver, or they were really bland when they were talking about that. So, but overall, he was really positive. He was glad to be in Clemson, excited about the season, and looking forward to fall ball. So.
Yeah, and I can see the non-committal when it comes to Brennan Stool, and I don't see that as a bad thing either. And Griffin, you look at a guy like Jake Brennan Stool, he's an enormous target at 6 feet 6 inches tall. But one thing that I've always found unique about him is that he's athletic enough and fast enough that, yes, his natural position is tight end, and he can play on the inside at the tight end position. But he's also fast enough to go out wide and I think play one of those boundary receiver positions and be one of those big, tall jump ball targets down the field. So there's some versatility there. So I can see that non-committal from the coaches and how they would use him. And certainly less than 5-6 weeks away from the first game, I don't think they would want to give anything away in terms of what they could do, because that's a big weapon on offense. And I think you want to keep the shroud over it for as long as you can.
I agree, and I think even last year, Jake Brennan Stool was shrouded by the fact that, he had to run a 2 tight end set with Davis Allen. I think, this year with him entering kind of like his upperclassman years, you're going to see a lot more out of Jake Brennan Stool, and he is probably one of my most exciting players going in the next season, just because, like you said, he is athletic enough to play like a receiver, and he's 6'6", so he could win any jump ball in the red zone. And you even saw this last year when he might have not been the tight end number 1, but he was the tight end number 2. And, he did make a couple good plays in the spring game that got me excited for him for the fall. So I think, people are talking about this receiving core, the running back core. I think Jake Brennan Stool is as dangerous as they can be. I think he could have the upside of being in an all ACC team. He has the tools and he has the athleticism to do so. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see him on the short list at the end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting to see how Garret Riley and Coach Swinney incorporate Jake Brennan Stool to the offense. It's just another tremendous weapon at the Tigers' disposal. So it's going to be really exciting to see how that plays out. But again, we'll move on from Media Day. And like I said, for the rest of the great coverage that we had, check out our website. And you see the information flashing on the ticker at the bottom of your screen. So go to ClemsonSportsMedia.com. You can find us on YouTube and follow us at CU Sports Media on Twitter as well. But let's move on to some other news that pertains to Clemson or is going to have an impact on Clemson athletics. And the first thing, guys, that I kind of wanted to talk about was for anybody that's been following maybe not just Clemson, but sports news from around the ACC, there's a new TV deal that's coming to the ACC. And seen some mixed reactions, I think, when it comes to this TV deal. Seen some pandering online from other conferences and other fan bases. But I want to get you guys' thoughts on that. What do you think about this new TV deal? Does it positively or negatively impact Clemson, or is it just kind of a neutral thing and a different platform that the ACC is going toward in order to broadcast some of their games?
So for me, and it's like, I think you can go either way. I think it could be a very positive thing. I think it could be a very negative thing. I think it just depends on the type of team you are, because I think it's important for like the lower, kind of like the teams that might not be ESPN every Saturday night, like Clemson is, to get not a prime time game, but you're getting a game on a different channel where, people can tune in and watch, and you can get, maybe whether it be publicity or you get views, it could be something like that. I just don't really know. I think money plays a huge factor in college football nowadays. You see this with, Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. teams like USC as well. So at the end of the day, it's all a money. College football is becoming a money game, in my opinion. And, I think that it could work well for some teams and it might hurt some others. I think, it's going to benefit and it's going to hurt some teams, I think, at least.
Yeah, and Clifton, what are your thoughts as well? I mean, is this a situation where do you potentially see this new TV deal and the network that's going to carry these games? Does it potentially take Clemson away from some of those primetime spots on your ESPNs or ABCs? Or do you still think that those networks are still going to get first dibs when it comes to the big Clemson games? Again, as Griffin said, it could be a positive or a negative, but how do you see this shaking out in that regard? And do you think it will hurt Clemson's exposure on the national level at all?
I don't think it'll hurt their national exposure. And I do think ESPN will get most of their primetime games. But I also think that it's going to give a lot more people a chance to see all of the ACC and what the ACC can offer. Now, as far as Clemson, I really don't know how much it's going to help us, to be honest with you, because we're already on a national stage. 10 years ago or longer, if this deal would have happened, then I would have said yes. It's definitely going to help us because we weren't in that prime time spot, right? Just about every game. Now we're in that prime time spot. I don't know if y'all heard this, but ESPN let go of about 200 people again.
Mm-hmm.
And
again,
so, well, I mean, they let go of a lot of people back during COVID.
Right.
So, but they let go of around 200 people. So I don't know if that has to do with streaming services now, and they're going to pick up local people to come do their ESPN broadcast. I don't know how that's going to work. But I still think, that deal will depend if it helps Clemson or not. I really don't know. I really don't see that happening because I think ESPN will pick up all of our games.
Well, at least they didn't get rid of Lee Corso, so we've still got him on College Game Day to pick against Clemson. We'll still have to contend with the Corso curse if he decides to pick us if we have a College Game Day game this year. So at least we still have that going for us, right?
Yep, we still have good old Lee Corso. Yep.
Well, in other news, let's go hop on the baseball train here for a second. And we talked last week about Clemson players, prospects, and current Clemson players who were drafted in the Major League Draft and who will be moving on. But the Tigers picked up just in the last couple of days a pretty talented transfer and not from very far away as well. A young man named Lucas Malstedt. And he's a pitcher that is coming to Clemson from Wofford. And when you look at this kid's numbers, he was 7-2 this season at Wofford with a 2.69 ERA. Maybe when you think of Wofford, you don't think of a baseball powerhouse, but I'm a stats guy, and the numbers speak for themselves. Give me 7-2 with a 2.69 ERA any day of the week. I think this is a big get for Coach Eric Bakich in the Clemson baseball program.
I think so, and this isn't the first guy they got from Wofford. They obviously got Matthew Markall, who was here earlier this offseason. But I like him. I think he is more of a reliever than a starter, which is huge. Even I think just because you're just trying to reload arms. You lost Caden Grice and Ryan Ammons to the MLB drafts, and at the end of the day, you're just trying to get arms. And I think Lucas Malstedt is a great option just because he is all Southern Conference first team. And you are going to get production out of him. You don't know yet just because of the transition from maybe a mid-major to the ACC could be a little bit different. But the numbers are there and the stats are there. So I think that he's going to be a great reliever for Clemson. I think that, whether he'll be the setup guy, the closer, or just a long reliever, maybe even a starter, who knows? He's still entering his junior year, so there's still a good amount of years on him, whether it be 1 or 2. So I like what Eric Bakich is doing. I think, going to a close college in Wofford, you can't go wrong with it. And he's gotten 2 guys.
And Clifton, it's really the antithesis of what the football program does and how it builds its roster. Of course, much has been made about Coach Swinney not using the transfer portal. He likes to bring guys in from the recruiting side of things. He's very loyal to his guys. But, in the modern landscape of college athletics, with the transfer portal becoming very instrumental in a lot of teams and coaches constructing their rosters, Coach Bakich has become very prolific in using this transfer portal. We saw it pay dividends in the form of an ACC championship this past season, and he just continues to bring in talented guys. So, to me, that proficiency in using the portal, I think, is helping him set Clemson baseball up for a program that can be successful for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna switch back to football for 2 seconds because when you said transfers, it kind of popped something in my head. Dabo said in the press conference, he was like, "That is one thing that we will hardly ever do is use the transfer portal, even though they've done it twice." One thing he also said, he also said that when recruiting coaches, he's always, he said it twice, going to recruit within. He said before he goes outside of to look for guys like Garret Riley. That's why we saw who we saw first. But to baseball, switching back to baseball, yes, I think you see baseball using the transfer portal with Eric Bakich, and I think you see Brownell using the transfer portal, and it's just a difference of coaching philosophies, right? But yeah, I think Eric Bakich has done an excellent job with using the transfer portal, and he picks the right guys, I think. Because we definitely needed some arms, even if they're starters or if they're relievers, we definitely need the arms. Because in that last game, we were exhausted because of our arms. After Caden, especially against Tennessee, and after Caden came out and we threw like 5 pitchers in a row, we had nothing else hardly. And then the next day, we had already exhausted all our pitchers. So it was just bringing in arms is definitely a priority for the baseball team, I think.
Well, the saying goes in baseball, you can never have too much pitching. And a lot of successful teams and programs, they build their foundation on it, and justifiably so. And that's what Coach Bakich is doing. He'll fill out the pitching staff, and he'll get even more talented arms in there. Excuse me. So, I think Clemson baseball will be just fine. So let's switch gears now to Clemson recruiting. And the last 2 weeks had seen a little bit of a lull after a very exciting June. But now it's picked back up again, both for the good and for the bad. But let's talk about the good first. Clemson picked up 2 more commitments for the 24 class just this week. And the first was Ashton Hampton, 4-star defensive back. He's out of Florida, I think. And or correct me if I'm wrong, I think he is out of Florida. Is that right, Griffin?
Yeah, Tallahassee.
Yeah. And this is a young man. He had been crystal ball to projected to Clemson. And to me, this is a big get. This is a young man that Wes Goodwin really, really wanted. And he's just another what I think is a long line of top-notch defensive back recruits that in the years to come can make a big impact on this defense. So it was a big get.
Absolutely. And Ashton Hampton, just looking at what he can do, he's the type of guy that you do not want to face on the other side of the ball. You want him on your team. And especially being from Tallahassee, Florida, it is a huge get just because you're taking him away from Florida State. And he went to like the Florida State University school as well, like just like a couple minutes down the road of Florida State. I think it's a huge get. He can play plenty of positions. I think they just got him for an athlete, so he can play safety or defensive back. He played receiver in high school as well. So he's a two-way player, 6'2", 190. Just looking at what he can do as a defensive back, he is very good at making receivers uncomfortable. He plays in tight. And he's a very physical defender as well. When, those jump balls come in, he's great at breaking it up. So just looking at this, cornerback class, you're kind of looking at guys, even with him joining Ricardo Jones as well, you're kind of getting mentorship from guys like Andrew Makuba and Nate Wiggins if they do stay for their senior years. So I think it's a huge get. I like it a lot, and it strengthens the defensive backcourt, which arguably could be one of the spots to work on when it comes to the Clemson defense.
Right, and this might not be the only elite defensive back that Clemson gets in the span of about a week and a half. There's another commitment coming up on July 22nd, I believe it is, and it's yet another 4-star, highly rated defensive back, Corian Gibson. And there are a lot of people that have him projected to the Tigers as well. So as we close in on his commitment, let's see, today is July the 18th. So 4 more days until this young man makes his decision public. Griffin, have you heard anything out of Gibson's recruitment, and what do you think the Tigers' chances are of landing him as well?
I know, looking at him last week, he had a very good chance. I know that Texas and like Texas Tech, as well as TCU being with Gibson being from Texas, it's going to be tough to move him. But I think that he does have, projections on Clemson, on the Tigers. So, I mean, we've seen people switch from the Tigers from other teams like that before, right before they make the decision. But I think if, Clemson does pick up Corian Gibson, it is as big as a pickup as Ashton Hampton, as big of a pickup as Ricardo Jones. You're just strengthening that, cornerback, defensive back room, and you're just saving it for the future. And, all 3 of these guys that, we've talked about today that, will probably end up as a defensive back or safety are incredible pickups and will only strengthen Clemson's recruitment reload.
Yeah, like Kirk Herbstreit said back a few years ago on a national ESPN Saturday night game, it's just an embarrassment of riches, and Clemson keeps reeling in the top flight talent. So, like we talked about before, pity anybody that thinks Clemson is fading quickly into mediocrity, because that's simply not true. And Clifton, like I like to tell people, denial's not just a river in Egypt.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think it's big that you get Ashton Hampton and then maybe Gibson. But talking about Adam Cassidy, I can't say his last name.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about him next. I believe.
Yeah.
Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Kasai, maybe Adam Kasai.
Kasai. Okay. I was just going to say, you were talking about people flipping. I mean, it's funny how he was committed to Minnesota, like you said, and then you flip him right after he gets offer from us. I mean, here's something I saw today, and I've seen it several times just by being in that cab area. Any recruit that comes through that area and doesn't feel warm and welcome and get every photo they want, and something they were talking about today in that cab area, you know how recruits will come like 3 times out of the year or out of their recruitment, right? Every time they come to that cab room, they get a totally different photo shoot. It's never the same. There's never the same layout. And I thought that was super cool. And I'm telling you, it's one of the photographers that we were there with said, and journalism, he was in journalism too. He said that is by far better than the journalism school and photography school that he went to, by far. And if a recruit comes through there and doesn't want to come here, there's something. It's got to do with it's got to do with school. I mean, that's just how I see it. It's amazing what they do for recruits in that area. It's crazy.
I agree 100%.
I went on a tangent. I went on a little tangent. Sorry.
That's what we do here. We try to keep it light and fresh for sure. But of course, we're talking about Adam Kasai and Clifton, as you said. This is a young man. He's a defensive end. Was committed to Minnesota. Clemson, I think, as a general rule, I don't know that Clemson has a huge track record of trying to flip commitments once they have pledged to a school. But Kasai, he's rated as a 3-star recruit. But there's something that Wes Goodwin sees in this young man. And again, the Tigers have been so good at finding those rough diamonds that they can polish into superstars. And if Wes Goodwin sees something in this kid that he wanted, enough that he would try to flip him from a school that he was committed to, and not only flipped him, but did it in about 24 hours after an offer was made, then there's something that he likes in this kid.
And Garrett, I think the thing that he likes is got to be his frame. He's 6'7.5", 230 pounds. And the Tigers just got a guy who has kind of like the lengths like that, and that was Darian Mayo a couple weeks ago. So 2-3 years from now, imagine a Clemson defensive line with 2 guys on each side that are 6'7" and above. It's crazy. I think,
that's going to be crazy.
Exactly. I think especially, and how Clemson just molds these guys, Garrett, like you said, who might be like a lower star prospect, might not be the best prospect coming out of high school, but they just get molded into superstars. And I think with a frame like being 6'7", 230, Kasai could do that. I think he could. And you never know. I think that he's going to be a great fit, and you're going to see him. I think you'll see him just because of his height. Like, he'll just tower over everybody.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And while we're on the subject of recruiting, one more topic to hit. And this, as I said, we'll talk about the good and we'll talk about the bad too. And this isn't necessarily bad, at least not yet, but things might not be trending in exactly the right direction. But there's a big 5-star recruit out there that Clemson has been hotly in pursuit of for a long time now, and that is receiver and athlete Mike Matthews. And for a while now, I think it's been probably considered closer to a 2-team race between Clemson and Tennessee. And some of the current commitments like Sammy Brown, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore, and those guys have really been recruiting Mike Matthews hard on Clemson's behalf. But with that said, in the last couple of days, Mike Matthews was crystal balled to Tennessee. And some of the insiders seem to feel like he might be leaning in that direction ahead of his commitment announcement on August the 5th. So what does Clemson have to do to get back in this ball game? And do you still think that there's a chance that they could make an 11th hour push and reel Matthews back in?
I think, you kind of have to throw the Hail Mary at some point. And I think, what TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco are doing, especially even, Sammy Brown, what they're doing to recruit him is great. But, being crystal ball to Tennessee, there are a lot of insiders, Garrett, like you said, that believe that he's going to go to the Vols. And I think at the end of the day, you have to look at who have Tennessee receivers like turned out to be, and who have Clemson receivers turned out to be. And I'm sure you can come up with a long list of names of Clemson receivers that I know one we're going to talk about later that made it to the NFL and have been all pros and have been Pro Bowlers. I don't really know if you could say the same about Tennessee. Not from what I know. Maybe a Tennessee fan could argue with me about that. Yeah. But I don't. Clemson has had results. Tennessee, feel free to create your own legacy, but legacy has already been created at Clemson for many of these receivers. So there's no problem. There's obviously, a formula to do it, and it's at Clemson. So that's kind of what I'd persuade Mike Matthews to do. But, at the end of the day, it's on him.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And of course, Clemson has been known as wide receiver U, and just the plethora of great wide receivers that have come through. You've got guys like Mike Williams, Martavis Bryant, of course, Sammy Watkins, T. Higgins, Amari Rogers, Hunter Renfro. The list just goes on and on and on. And one of those guys that was certainly has been part of the wide receiver U that Clemson has established is DeAndre Nuke Hopkins. And we're going to talk about him as there's been some news about Clemson, former Clemson players in the NFL, and all in a positive light. And the first is Nuke Hopkins. As the word has come out, he's going to be signing with a new team, an AFC team, and that is the Tennessee Titans. So another opportunity for Nuke as he progresses in his career, and he's been established as a reliable NFL receiver for some time. So, Griffin, how do you see Nuke Hopkins fitting in with the Tennessee Titans and what they like to do?
I see him fitting in as a receiver who just lightens the load on everybody in the offense around him. For Derrick Henry, for example, the Titans running back, it relieves pressure on him. Being a run-first team, you now have a threat in Hopkins. For the Tennessee Titans receivers who were led by like Treylon Burks, who is now a 2-year receiver, I think there was like a graphic that said that the Titans head coach Mike Vrabel had more touchdowns than the most touchdowns for a Titans receiver before Hopkins. Yeah. So it just comes to say that I think, with whether Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis being the quarterback for Tennessee, I think it's just a security blanket. And, with Hopkins being on the older side now, being, I think, 31 years old, he becomes more of a mentor, but because I think that his better days are behind him. I'm sure you two can agree with me on that, especially with injuries kind of lingering. But I think that he still has some great days ahead of him as well. I think that, you're not going to see the constant 100-yard and a touchdown game. You're going to see quality plays, quality starts, and at the end of the day, he could help the Titans make a push, whether for the wild card or whether for the AFC South title. I mean, they fell just short last year, so who knows what's going to happen at the end of the day. But I like the deal, and I'm happy for him. I'm happy for DeAndre Hopkins.
And Clifton, I think Nuke has always been one of those players, even going back to his high school days at Daniel High School and then at Clemson. He's always been one of those players to me that has what I'll call the clutch gene. And whenever you need a big play, a big catch, Nuke Hopkins is always that safety valve that you can go to. And again, as Griffin said, he might not be the explosive player that he once was. The shelf life of NFL players, of course, is considerably shorter than, say, baseball or the NBA. But Nuke Hopkins is still a guy that can be that safety valve, and he can still go out and make plays, I think. It's like the song says, he might not be as good as he once was, but he can be as good once as he ever was.
Yes, he can. And you were talking about him being clutch. I mean, all you have to say is 4th and 16. And people know, Clemson fans know what you're talking about. Clemson fans know what you're talking about if you say 4th and 16. And
so does LSU.
Yeah. I mean, you think of two people, right? You think of Taj Boyd and you think of Nuke Hopkins. And I'm right there with you. With him, not being as good as he once was, but he's still good. Like, he's still going to have some games where he'll pop off. And, I think he could have some 100-yard games. He's 31, but, man, as long as the injury bug doesn't get him, I think he's going to be that mentor. I think he can have some 100-yard games, maybe not as many as he used to. He definitely has the hands. Whenever you need a catch, you throw it to him. And so I think it's going to be a good thing for the Tennessee Titans. I wish he had come to Carolina, but, that would never happen. And so
we know the Panthers and their history with Clemson players or lack thereof. So, but that's neither here nor there, but yeah.
Yeah.
But, guys, it's not just DeAndre Hopkins who is kind of being talked about in NFL circles right now. ESPN released a piece in the last week where they rated the top 10 NFL players at each position group. And there's some Clemson guys in there that made the cut for ESPN. And you're talking about guys, especially on the defensive line, like Dexter Lawrence, I believe was in the top 2 or 3 at that position group, according to ESPN. Grady Jarrett is still a very highly productive defensive player in the NFL. And then you've got defensive back A.J. Terrell was part of that list. And you've just got Clemson players that are up and down the professional ranks that are continuing to make an impact. And that catches people's eye. And to me, I think it does nothing but shed Clemson in a positive light. And the fact that even going back to the recruiting side, when you get recruits on campus, you can say, hey, look at these guys. They came from Clemson. They're Clemson made. They've been in the NFL a long time, and they're still playing at a high level. This is how we can develop players, and now it translates to the professional level. So I think that's really a good thing on all levels for Clemson football and its perception from a national standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you see why a lot more of, these defensive star players from these high schools are coming to Clemson. You can literally, I think you could point at any one of those players. You could point at Dexter Lawrence and be like, you want to be like him, come to us. Kind of like as light as it may be. But, Garrett, like you said, it does shed Clemson in a positive way. It's always, I think recruits I'm talking more on the recruiting side. Recruits want to go to the NFL. That's their dream. They don't want to go to a dead-end college and not go. So, I think it just sheds them in a light where you'll have a promising career if you come to Clemson. You'll be, molded into an NFL prospect like all these guys were on draft night. And, even guys like Miles Murphy, Brian Brzee, Trenton Simpson, you could see them in these rankings in a few years. You never know. But with, how the trend's been going, you might. So I think you just hit it right in the head. It sheds them in a positive light. And, you got to feel great for these kids who were once Tigers.
Yeah, and Clifton, you see it does. You put personal allegiances aside, and of course, we all have our favorite pro teams as well. But when you look at these young men from Clemson that came through, helped the time, many of them that helped Clemson win 2 national championships, and now you see them succeed on the professional level. It doesn't matter who you pull for personally. I mean, it's just so hard not to root for these guys and the impact that they're making as Clemson Tigers, because I can only speak for myself. Yeah, I've got my pro team, but above anything else, I'm a Clemson fan. And where my football fandom lies, it's Clemson first and then everything else. So it's a good look for Clemson, and it's a lot of fun to see what these guys are doing.
Yeah, definitely. You were talking about Big Dex. I saw him today. So he was in the weight room lifting some weights, pumping that iron. So so he was there today. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you said. I mean, yes, I have my team, I guess. I'm not a big pro guy, but I pull for the Panthers. But anytime I see a Clemson player and I pull for that team, even if there's 2 Clemson players playing against each other. You know what I'm saying? When one of them's on offense, I pull for that guy. When one of them's on defense, I pull for that guy. But if they're playing each other and you got a Clemson player on one side and a Clemson player on the other, it's hard, man. It's one of those things. They'll never play against each other. Like, they'll never play one-on-one, I wouldn't think. They might, but, it's one of those things where you always pull for the Clemson. Yeah, I'm Clemson first by far. And so, I'm always pulling for those guys. And it's hard to pull for them when they're playing your team. But considering the Panthers don't really have any Clemson players, sometimes I pull against the Panthers.
I went through a phase, and I can't say for sure whether I'm exactly over it or not, but I was a Panthers fan from their inception, going all the way back to their first season, which oddly enough was played at Death Valley in Clemson while Bank of America Stadium was being built. But it's kind of hard not to pull for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. I mean, obviously, I'm rocking the Trevor Lawrence threads tonight, and they've got T-Law and Travis Etienne. So, I went through this phase where I swore the Panthers off because they would never draft a Clemson player. And I was hashtagging Duval everything last football season. So we'll see. We'll see what happens once the NFL season kicks off here in September.
Yeah, you were talking about sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Basically, like you said, Trevor Lawrence, I remember freshman me. It was when Clemson beat Duke at Clemson last year in basketball. And that night, the Jaguars played the Panthers with that huge 28-0 comeback, and everybody bouncing off the walls. Trevor Lawrence led everyone back. It's just, it shows that I think everybody hear, like, no matter what's a Clemson fan, they're a Jaguars fan if Trevor Lawrence is playing. They're a Bengals fan if T. Higgins is playing. It's, it just comes to show. I think that's how everybody feels when it comes to Clemson sports. You just want to see the players succeed.
Yeah,
for sure.
You really do. But yeah, I saw multiple pro players in that new workout facility, and they were pumping some major iron today, because we walked through that today during media days to get to the cab area. And man, I'm telling you, I saw the what's his name that's with the Dolphins,
Wilkins,
defensive
Christian
lineman
Wilkins.
Yeah, I saw him today. He was pumping some iron. There was a couple of other ones over there, but they were all just getting at it, man. That's one good thing I will say that I love about Clemson is, and this might happen at other schools too, but players come back because they love the university and they love the atmosphere that they got when they were here. And so it's just one of those things where it's that family atmosphere, like, and the love that Dabo has for his players, and that they want to come back. So,
well,
yeah, there were a lot of pro players. There were a lot of pro players. So, yep.
For sure. And it's like the saying around here goes, there really is something in these hills, and whatever it is, it keeps bringing them back.
Yep,
exactly.
That's for sure.
Well, I think that's going to about wrap it up for us tonight. Before we bid everybody great rest of the week, tune in next week if you like what you're seeing here on Around the Paul. We hope you do. And thank you to everybody who's been checking us out. The views have been great. The feedback's been great. And I think it looks like everybody's really enjoying what we're doing. So not only we hope you enjoyed this show, but we'll have a lot more coming right back at you next week. Again, got a big commitment announcement coming up from Corey and Gibson. That's coming up this weekend. So we'll have an answer for where he winds up. And we've got a lot more coming as well. And Clifton, we've got ACC Media Day coming up. So today was the Clemson appetizer, and now the Conference Media Day, they're going to serve their main course. So coming up in the next 2 weeks, we have a lot coming everyone's way.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Ant, and since he's going, and aren't you going too? Are you going?
No, I won't be.
You're not going. Okay. All right. So maybe we can bring Ant on here, and because that's before media days, so maybe we can bring him on here and kind of get a preview for that. And definitely in 2 weeks after that, so he can kind of recap that. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think so as well. And we'll try to get Anthony on here next week. And ACC Media Day should be very exciting. And not only do you get some insights on Clemson, but you get some insights from coaches from around the league on the other teams that Clemson will be playing. And you kind of get a better idea of where everyone stands. And as we inch ever closer to September 4th, Labor Day Monday, and that opener against Duke, more and more comes out, and we start to get a good idea of where people stand.
Exactly. And, what I like a lot about just like listening to other people is just, their takes on us. Like you've heard, us talk about now about other teams. I love hearing like what other people think of us. And, I think it even goes back to like, last week when we were talking about like why people are doubting us, why we are doubting other people. I don't know. I find it funny, and I like it a lot. And it's, best of both worlds, as I would call it.
Yeah, and we'll have a lot of that coming from ACC Media Day. We're looking forward to that, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's going to do it for us tonight, and we'll be right back at you next week with another episode of Around the Paul. Griffin, as always, appreciate it, and Clifton, appreciate the insight from Clemson Media Day today. It's a lot of fun, as it always is. So good night from South Carolina to New Jersey. Griffin, keep that wrist on the mend. That should be ready to go by the time you head back down to South Carolina for move in next month. But until next week, we'll talk to everybody later. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate the support. So for all of us, Garrett and Griffin and Clifton and Around the Paul, we'll catch you next time.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.